Hello. Today we are going to talk about theme development using middle school yearbooks from this past year as examples. Theme is one of the most important parts of your yearbook. The theme provides a unifying and defining device that runs through the yearbook. What this means is that your theme is what ties everything together. It's the colors you choose, the fonts, the graphics, the design elements. They are chosen when you choose your theme, and they are carried throughout the book to keep the book consistent and keep the reader engaged. The theme is built around a word, phrase, or concept. Here are a couple of themes that were from last year: Our New Normal with the math graphic, A Year Like No Other that used a bullet journal look, and A Time of Change with a really bright, bold, happy dot pattern. The theme is presented visually and verbally, so it has two parts. When you look at the theme, the first part is the visual, and that's what you see. It's the graphics and the colors and the design that starts on the cover and carries throughout the book. It works with the fonts where it says Cinco simplified in this example, and they use the same treatment on their headlines: music, magic, and technically speaking. You see the same colors on the cover also inside the book. Your theme development should include a theme phrase, graphics, your color palette, fonts, verbal connections throughout your book, and coverage connections in the pages of your yearbook. We should see the theme on the cover, most importantly, the end sheets, which when you open a yearbook, that's the first two pages that you see that attach the cover to the inside pages of the book. The opening and closing theme pages, which is where you describe your theme and why you chose it and why it best works for your school this year. Your division pages that separate your sections. And it also should extend to other sections: secondary coverage, headlines, group photos, ads, and even your index. The theme simplifies decisions about colors, fonts, and design. Imagine working on every page of your yearbook and having to decide on every single page: what colors am I going to use? What fonts do we want to use on this one? What do we want the design to look like? You're reinventing design decisions every single day. When you have a theme and font and design, all of those decisions are made at the beginning, and then you stick to those rules throughout the book. It provides consistency. It makes your book look like a much more professional publication. It also sets the tone and personality of the book. Your theme could be playful and happy, or it could be reflective and serious and historical. So your theme is what's going to set that tone and the personality. Your theme is the glue that holds your book together. It's what keeps people turning the pages. It's what keeps it, it ties it all together. And it's what makes it look like all of those pages in that book belong inside that cover. You couldn't just insert them in another book because they would be out of place. Your theme development starts with your cover. The cover should include a theme word or phrase. In this example, it's "going the distance" is their theme phrase. It should include visual motifs, the fonts, the colors, lines, shapes, and textures. In this example, the distance is in a really large vertical font. The plaid graphic on the right-hand side, and using the blue as the color of the background. You also need to include your book name, if you have one, and the year. The cover should have a logo, just your theme as a graphic that really grabs the reader's attention. It should be simple and distinctive, and it should just capture the message. With these three examples, the first one is organized chaos. So the words played off a very organized look of organized, and then chaos was a little bit more, kind of all over the place. Virtual reality in the middle example, the fonts are very, virtual, kind of high tech, and then they use the glitch graphic to tie it all together. And the third example, the theme was Together Wherever, and they have beautiful typography on this cover, and it just kind of shows that, you know, we are here, we're all together. So they tried to use the theme and then really present it to the reader right there on the cover with a logo. The theme and the logo should also reflect the mood and the tone of the theme. So if you're going to have a playful, fun theme, you need to start with a playful, fun cover as well. The theme development should continue inside the book. So let's recap a little bit. It needs to be on the end sheets, the opening, the closing, and the division pages inside the book. You can definitely do more, but it needs to be visible on those pages. You can also have extended coverage. So in your secondary coverage modules, your little sidebars, quote boxes, things like that, your headlines, your group photos, and even your ads in the index, they can all be theme related. Theme development should be visible in your typography, which is your font selections, your colors, your lines, and your shapes. It needs to be visible verbally as well in your headlines, in your secondary coverage, and your modules. So let's see some examples and put it all together. The first example is Prairie Trail Middle School, and this is the cover. Their theme was the Un-year, and they explain that on the right-hand side of the cover: unreal, unexpected, unclear, unfair, unexplainable. So when people look back, they're going to know this was this past year. It really speaks to the year 2020, 2021. So let's open up the book and look inside. This is their opening, their theme opening, where it explains the theme and why they picked it. So if you look here, it's the Un-year. And then if you look at the opening copy on the left-hand side, everywhere they had an Un word, they put it in the bold letters, blue, just like they did on the cover. So that tied it back together. They used the notebook paper graphic that we also saw on the cover, and then they kept their colors consistent with what they started with. So throughout this book, you'll notice they stuck with the blue color palette. They used the notebook paper graphics. They used the outline, large letters anytime they use Un. So they kept their theme elements very consistent. This next example from the book is a student life spread. The theme or the headline is Untouched, and this is all the things that the students left behind when they had to leave school unexpectedly last spring. So it just goes through, you know, the same fonts. If you look at all the captions in the book, they're all the same size, they're all the same font. It remains very consistent. This is a sports page from this book. It definitely looks like it belongs in the book. Another Un word, unstoppable. Another, you know, sidebar, and the beat goes, and it just, you know, has dance and sports and all the different things that are happening at the school. Here's an example of one of their people pages, the portraits that you have, you know, your school pictures. At the bottom of the page, it has a module about snacks, and they use the word unhealthy and highlighted that with the thin outline. Our next example is Ridgeview Middle School, and their theme is Tell It Like It Is. So they wanted to cover the year by telling you this is how it is, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. We're going to tell it like it is. This is their end sheet on the left and their title page on the right. And if you'll notice, they did a little swap. I noticed this as a trend this year that some schools kind of swap the information that normally is on the title page onto the end sheet. They did this for a variety of reasons, but it's just kind of a trend that I noticed this year. So on the end sheet, it has all the title page information that is included. And then on the table of contents was actually on page 1. And it has the names of all the sections that are very thematic. And it kind of leads you through the book. I'm going to go back and look at the cover real quick. So if you look at the cover, it has the blue background and all the colors. And then as soon as you open the book, it's the opposite. It's bright and it's white, and it has all the same elements, the shapes, the same fonts, the same graphics, but it just kind of switches it right there on you when you open the book. Another page from this book is their theme opening. So they started with "It's like this," and they go through and talk about the kind of the buzzwords from this year: different, unusual, confusing, stricter, and explain why why this is the theme and why this was perfect for this year. This is a student life page. They talk about traveling, which a lot of different people went on road trips this year. So they, got some pictures from different students, and then they covered it. So they use their same color palette. So if you notice, the United States is in all their colors, all the different percentages of who traveled where. One thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the whole book link on this book. Across the bottom of the spreads, they have a color bar, and then on most of them, they have photos, and they have someone that asked a question. They ask them a question, and then they have their picture of them and their answer. So this is a great way to get additional coverage of students. Everybody wants to see themselves in the book, and the more likely, if they're in the book, the more likely they are to buy one. So this school, if you look at the spreads, they have the whole book link on a lot of them, where they continue to feature as many kids with quotes and pictures as they can. The next spread from this book is an academic spread, and this is talking about the students, and they attended their classes in pods. And if you look, consistent fonts, consistent colors, the design is changing on every page, but it still all looks like it belongs in this yearbook. Here's one of their dividers. This is their people section, and their title for the people section is "Face It, This Is Us." And then they have a detailed table of contents on the divider, so it tells you all the different things that you'll find in this section right here on the page. Here's a sports page. So it has volleyball at the bottom, and then a little module at the top. If you notice, it's got all the different shapes. You see the little dot pattern in there. You see the orange and the blue, the same consistent fonts throughout the book. So one other thing I wanted to draw your attention to is a way to do captions and how to let your reader know which photo you're talking about. If you look at the captions on the right side of the screen, you see that there's a different color in front of each caption: blue, orange, yellow, teal. And then those colors on the corner of each photo has that same block. So if you are looking at the picture with the orange block in the corner, you look at the orange caption. So they kind of color code their captions for each picture. Another spread, this is a fine art spread from the book. It is their musical that they recorded onto a DVD because of the regulations on performances. They also did, in the top corner, a QR code. So if you scan the QR code, you can get behind the scenes and more photos and videos of this performance. This is the people spread in the book. If you look at the cutouts in the middle, the quotes they have of the students, it's the shapes that we've seen throughout the book. It's just in a different way. So they keep kind of using their theme elements, their colors, their fonts, their graphics, but using them in different ways on all the different pages. For this year, a lot of students weren't able to take pictures. So instead of leaving them out or putting them in a list, they went ahead and left them all in. So they all had a spot in the book, and they used a graphic that looked kind of like the Google Meet graphic. That was their first initial of their first name. So the closing of this book, it has, it says it's like this, and then it kind of goes through and talks about how the year, it was surreal. We made progress, and then at the end, and through it all, we tell it like it was. So they're kind of reflective and looking back. And one more is that's index. So your theme and your graphic and your design doesn't have to stop. Your index doesn't have to be boring and plain. It can have the same elements that you have throughout the book. So they still have even their whole book link throughout the index, and all the different sections and the colors and the graphics. So don't be afraid to design on any page in your book with your thematic elements. All right, our next example is Peterson Middle School in California, and their theme is Remember When. If you look at this cover, you can kind of look and see what are we going to see inside the book. So I think you kind of picked up on it now that the cover is a hint. It's a hint of what you're going to see when you open that book. So you can kind of look and see, is this what color palette are they going to use? And what fonts am I going to see? And what graphic elements do I think I'm going to see again? So when we open it up, we see Remember When. So they repeat their theme, and they have quotes. Their people are remembering when, all the different things that happened this year. And, kind of like a timeline on the right-hand side about all the memories and the things that are you're going to come back to you when you look through this book. The next one is a student life page. It's got, the same fonts, the same color palette we saw on the cover. If you notice, this book has really consistent fonts, and they're really simple, clean fonts. So you don't have to pick a super graphic or decorative font. As long as you, use it consistently, you can use whatever. You can use one font family, or you can use, multiple fonts if you want to. But as long as you keep them consistent, it looks very good. This is a trends page. This is the apps and the books and what people streamed, movies, TV shows, songs. So it just shows all the different fun things that students can look back on here. But if you notice the design of the page, they have that really clean line framing the page and the same color palette and fonts that we've seen on the other pages of the book. This is an academics page from this book. They're talking about their virtual learning. They have some, Zoom screenshots to kind of commemorate that. Just talking about the different, different things from this year. So a really good modular design. And at the end of this book, they have the call-a-thon. That might be a new word to some of you. It's just the page that talks about the book and what went into making it and all of the technical details about the book and how it was produced. So you can have some thank yous, different things on there. So this page is the call-a-thon. They designed it. They made it look just like their book with the colors and the graphics, same font, everything. And on the right-hand page is their staff. So they give a little shout out to each member of their yearbook staff this year. Okay. Our next example is Katy Junior High, and this is the cover, and their theme is redefine. So we see a red, white, and black color palette, and we see a really good serif font, and then this dot pattern that I'm thinking we'll see again throughout the book. When you open up to the title page, you see that they've carried out the dot, between Katy, and then, just started out with some photos, like, right away on the title page. In the opening, they have the dot pattern but they changed it to red now, and it goes through, like, they redefined it. And I'll give you a spoiler if you haven't figured it out yet, but their school color is red. So that's why they're redefining everything, but they're focusing on the red and the school spirit, but the tigers fought through it all. This is a student life page. It talked about so much time, but nowhere to go. So what did people do during the pandemic? And so it's, a lot of photos, submitted from different people at the top. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner where they talk about your bucket list, there are circles. So they're using their same circle element with a little offset red circle behind it. So they're keeping with their graphic. In the bottom left-hand corner, there is a cutout of a student, and each student it says redefine, and this one says summer break. And the student got to define what summer break means to them. And it also has the pronunciation of summer break down there for you. So if you look throughout the book, they have that as their whole book link, where they carry that throughout the book. And they did fun stuff with their folio too. If you see on the right-hand side, 007 is the page number. So they had 3-digit page numbers throughout the book, and they were, really large with the outline look. Here's a divider. No surprise that it's red background. And it, just a little bit, they use the dot pattern again, but on top of a photo. And this was their autumn sections. They did a chronological book, which was also very popular this year. And here's an academics page, just showing students virtual learning, how they did, learning was a little bit different this year, dress code, things like that during their classes. Okay, and here's a fine arts page with band. You see those same, offset photos. This spread is really good because it has a mix of cutouts and traditional, normal square rectangular photos, but they kept everything consistent. You're not seeing blue or purple or green or anything. I mean, their theme color is red, their school color is red, and they are sticking with that throughout the book. So it was a design choice, and they did a great job of carrying it throughout the book. Here's a sports page. I've got a lot of photos on this page using the dots, on the left-hand side where it says set me up. And then the dream team, a sidebar down the whole right-hand side of the spread, where it has 3 more photos and got quotes and pictures of all of those students. Here's a student feature where they had cutouts of the students and they let them share their experience at Katy Junior High. So this was by definition. And so they went through and gave, quotes from each of the students, and then, just different things like talking about like what's in your pocket and different kind of AirPod cases and, different things across the bottom. It talks about, phone cases of students. So it was just a lot. It was a fun year for unique coverage, and they did a great job. The next example is Santa Fe Trail Middle School in Kansas, and their theme was, okay, so now what? And if you open the book, you see the title page, which is the example on the right. So they took their bold theme, and then they opened it up, and then they're just like, right there in your face, like, this is us, Santa Fe Trail Middle School 2021. So, kind of get ready. But if you look at the cover, you see we're right back to the red, white, and black theme. And it's asking a question. So your theme doesn't have to just be a phrase or a word. It can be a question. So their theme was, okay, so now what? So we've talked about how you have the verbal connection. So I wanted to focus on the opening copy in this book. So they expanded. You can see the really big words. Okay, so now what? You see that again. But here it says, okay, so nothing about the last year has been what you would consider normal. It was definitely not what you expected either. This year has left us with a lot more questions than answers. But the biggest question that has been at the forefront of our minds is, now what? Which I think everyone can relate to. So this was their opening of the book. And so if you notice throughout, this was, as part of the cover design, and now it's the background of this page, just the question marks, just nobody, not knowing what's happening or what's coming next. So throughout the book, they answered their own question. So it's, okay, so now we reconnect. So now we reflect. So now we move forward. So throughout the book and all their sections, they answered their question, now what? This is one of their student life pages. It talked about banishing boredom. I thought the headline package was super cute with the Scrabble tiles and the cards and then the dominoes on the left-hand side. It has all the different things that people did to keep them busy. And then on the right-hand side, it has all the food delivery services. So these are the graphics. I mean, these places may not be around forever. So it's kind of neat to see those graphics in here because people will remember when they look back years from now. One other thing I want to draw your attention to, I don't know if you've noticed it yet, but the page numbers, they are bold. They're in your face. They are large, just like the cover. That, okay, so now what? I mean, that was bold. And so they're continuing that whole look with the page numbers. So throughout this book, the page numbers are that big on all the pages, which is super fun. The next spread is their cheer page. So they have a lot of photos. Cheer, the same fonts from the cover, the same colors, all the same graphic elements. They are using them consistently on the pages. This is a current events page. They did a really good job with, they're a middle school, so those kids definitely don't vote, but they're talking about, showing their faculty and their I voted stickers, and then, just a little background about what it takes to be a president, and then some background on the candidates. So just, it was a pretty, historical election. So they definitely covered that in the book this year. Our last example is Canyon Vista Middle School. And this, their theme was all angles. And if you look at the cover, it has, all angles, and it starts with some of the graphics and the colors. So, you can start to guess what you'll see throughout the book. But also, if you open up the book, you see the title page, which is on the right-hand side. So it has this great photo on their title page with a unique angle from a drone. So you have, your theme is all angles, and then all of a sudden, all angles. Yes, here's a really, really unique angle of our school with the football field and the entire school in the area, from the sky. On the cover, you see the Polaroids, just the graphic. They're kind of, an empty Polaroid, but on the title page, you start to see those Polaroids filled in with student photos. This is a student life page from this book. You notice we're continuing the graphics, we're continuing the color palette, the same fonts from the cover. We're using those throughout the book. So what makes a book good and is just with the consistency. So making those design choices and then sticking with them throughout the book so that it's really professional and polished, and it looks like it was all done with intention. Here is a student life page, a super cute headline, House Potty. And it's just talking about all the students who got pets during the pandemic. And if you look, they use the same color from the cover on the sidebar on the right, which is talking about adoption. And then you also see the Polaroids and you see, the graphics and it's, consistent fonts throughout the book. This middle school did ads in their book. I know some middle schools don't, but it is something that is definitely an option. It's not just for seniors or for fifth graders and elementary. You can do ads in middle school. So it's something that you can do. I think they've recently added it. But if you look at the ads, the font, like the fonts of each student's first name and last name, those are their theme fonts. So the ads go with their theme. It's their colors and their fonts and the photos. So these ads match the book. They're not just, kind of just thrown in there. They were all done, purposefully to match and blend in with the pages in the book. Okay, so let's talk about theme a little bit more. How do you get a theme? Okay, so now everyone, we need a theme, but how do we get a theme? So you start with an idea. You're gonna have a lot of ideas, but not all of your ideas are gonna become a theme. So you have to get an idea first. Then you need to develop it by answering some questions. So there are different questions. And if you're going through your idea and trying to answer these questions and you can't do it, it might be time to scrap that idea and go on to another idea. This is a process. The theme is not something that usually happens in 5 minutes. It has before many times, but it usually is something that a lot of thought goes into. So some of the questions that can help you take an idea and turn it into a theme would be, what does your theme mean? Why that theme? So you need to be able to answer that. If you're like, I don't know, we just like it. Maybe that's not a good theme. You need to have one where you can say, this is our theme and this is why it is perfect for this year. What 3 words describe the tone and personality of that theme? Is it happy and playful and bubbly, or is it reflective and introspective? So you need to know, where are we going with this? We could take these words, this phrase, and what are we going to do with it? What is new and different and noteworthy about this year? So you always want to think about that. If it's an anniversary, if you have a brand new building, maybe all your principals are new. So think about what's different this year as compared to any other year. And that may be something that's going to lead you to your theme. And even if it doesn't, it's going to give you some coverage ideas. You can do some sidebars, some, throughout your portrait section, just some fun quotes about those different noteworthy things that you need to cover this year. What are students talking about? This is a great one. Trends, current events, school events. These can all become coverage ideas, but get in touch with your student body, find out what they're watching on TV, what apps they're using, what are the latest, greatest everything that they are all into. And that might help you come up, with the theme, or find out if your theme is relevant to the students in your school. What are other coverage ideas? So connected to your theme, you can expand that and cover old things in new ways. This was one that was definitely done quite a bit this year. Everything was done different, so things were getting covered in new ways for sure. What phrases play off the theme verbally? Wordplay becomes your headline and coverage ideas for modules. So take your theme and come up with a ton of just spin-off phrases and different, related words and phrases that you can use throughout the book to kind of carry your theme through the book verbally. What are other ways to say the theme? Think of synonyms, different words or phrases, And these can help you with your headlines throughout the book. If you can't answer these questions, try another idea. Your theme development should include a theme phrase, graphics, a color palette, fonts, verbal connections, and coverage connections. There's also a theme questions presentation, a different one, that you can watch and see how one school developed their theme and answered all of these questions. Thank you.